Welcome to another episode of the Trueish podcast. I'm Dan Aquino, and guys, we've made it. The season is here. Nothing else exists for me now. We had some marquee matchups on opening night: Lakers Nuggets and Suns Warriors. We're gonna get into that. Some nice matchups Thursday night as well. I'm gonna talk about what we saw from Victor Wembanyama in his official NBA debut, also from the Mavericks, Knicks and Celtics as well. Adam Silver announced on Wednesday changes to the All-Star game. We'll also talk about that. Okay, so the Lakers, not surprisingly, lost on opening night 119-107 to the defending NBA champion Denver Nuggets. Nikola Jokic was masterful. 29 points, 13 rebounds, 11 assists. Murray was great too. 21 points, 6 assists. Big game for Kentavious Caldwell-Pope. He had 20. Denver picked up right where they left off last season. This looked very, very similar to the Western Conference Finals, which is a little troubling for the Lakers. That's obviously a series they got swept in. LeBron led the way for the Lakers, 21, 8, and 5. He played just 29 minutes. We're going to get into that because that's a whole thing. Taurean Prince had 18, his first game as a Laker. Austin Reeves and D'Angelo Russell, they struggled, combined for just 8 of 23 from the field. Anthony Davis struggled as well, just 17 points. All of that scored in the first half. He scored 0 points in the second half. Overall, shot 6 of 17 from the field. So several things to attack here for the Lakers. Simply put, Austin Reeves and D'Angelo Russell, they have to play better. If they're going to be the starting backcourt of this team and one of the best players on the team, especially for Austin Reeves, they're just going to have to play better, and they're going to have to make smarter decisions with basketball. Austin Reeves had 3 turnovers. D'Angelo Russell had 2. So that's something they're going to have to get better at. It's just game one. But the next 2 things I think are major. The LeBron minutes restriction, one thing that a lot of people did not know about before coming into yesterday's game. I understand why it's being done. The problem is now that if LeBron's going to be your best player on the floor, you're not going to be able to survive him playing under 30 minutes a game. If the Lakers as a team don't learn to survive without him on the floor, this team is going nowhere. It's amazing. 21 years in the league and some things just never change, it seems like. This is a story of LeBron's career. Any LeBron fan will tell you that, which is funny because it conflicts with the narrative that we have so often placed on LeBron teams. That he's consistently played on stacked teams that are super teams that should always expectingly win the NBA championship at the end. But if you look at the on and off numbers with LeBron on any team, any year, pick a team, they're wild. But his teams are always judged, it seems like, on name value rather than how they actually play. Like, for example, the 2012 Heat, who everyone calls a super team, with Dwayne Wade, Chris Bosh. In the playoffs, the Heat had a net rating of a plus 10 when LeBron was on the court. They had a net rating of minus 15 when LeBron was off the floor. This is the 2012 Heat. They end up going on and winning the championship. They beat the Thunder in 5. That's for the entire playing run. Negative 15 with LeBron off, a plus 10 with LeBron on. His teams fall apart whenever he sits. Every single roster, look it up. And that's what makes this minutes restriction so problematic. Darvin Ham says he'll play 28 to 30 minutes a game, LeBron. And that'll work against 80% of the league. Most teams, this Laker team is good enough, given that AD plays better than he did last night. But this team is good enough that they'll beat most teams. They'll win 50 games with this type of strategy, but it's not going to work against the contenders. I think divulging this is a mistake in itself. Because if I'm a coach playing the Lakers play the Suns on Thursday. If I'm Frank Vogel, my goal is to dominate the non-LeBron minutes. Play the LeBron minutes as close to even as possible and then try to blow out the non-LeBron minutes. Because that's exactly what happened against Denver. LeBron last night, when he was on the floor, was a plus 7. The Lakers, though, were a negative 19 in the minutes that he sat. And those minutes were with Anthony Davis on the floor. Obviously, he didn't play well, and we'll get to Anthony Davis' side of things in just a bit. But that's really alarming. Now, they were playing the Nuggets in Denver, of course. These are the defending NBA champions. But this is the team you're going to have to beat in a 7-game series to get out of the West. If LeBron, almost 39 years old, is your best player and you can't survive him sitting on the bench, then the Lakers are in really big trouble. Now, this is the first game of the season, but that's just a glaring issue, I think, that no one really expected. One, the minutes restriction. Every LeBron coach comes into the season, especially the last decade or so, we're going to play LeBron less. We're going to play LeBron less. We want to keep his minutes down because this season, he's going to become the all-time minutes leader in playoff minutes and regular season minutes combined. It makes sense. He's in his 21st season. You're going to want to play him less. But this little 29 minutes, he only played under 30 minutes in one game last year. He averaged about 35 to 36 minutes a game. It just seems weird and just not, realistic to expect LeBron to only play about 28 to 30 minutes a game and the Lakers be successful. LeBron, after the game, talked about his minutes restriction in the press conference, and I quote, "I always want to be on the floor. I guess there's a system in place and I'm going to follow it." So this is clearly a managerial decision. This is not coming from LeBron. Like most load management in the league, it comes from the managerial side of things, from the coaching staff, from the training staff. I know we give the players flack for it all the time, but this is usually a team thing. Clearly the case here with the Lakers. But it sounds to me he doesn't love it. And I wouldn't either if every time I go to the bench, my team goes and blows the game. I get it. The Lakers need Bron in the spring. But if he's still this important to the success of the Lakers, it seems like a recipe for disaster. Now, obviously, the other part of this is Anthony Davis and how he played. I like how Anthony Davis played in the first half. He was attacking the rim, going at Jokic, took a few jumpers, he made a three. He just wasn't shooting all that well, but he had 17 points at half, which he was trying to keep up with Jokic. I think Jokic had about 21 points at half. But to go the entire second half, he was 0 of 6 in the second half, 0 of 5 in the third quarter, and then he only took one shot in the fourth. To do that after having 17 points in the first half it's mind-boggling. But then when you consider that this is Anthony Davis, and we saw him do this almost the entire playoff run last year when they went to the Western Conference Finals, it doesn't become that surprising. And then I hear all the criticism he's getting today, all the sports talk shows. They're coming down really hard on Anthony Davis, and I think he does deserve some of it. But I think people have to realize this is who he is. We have to stop with the expectations of what we want him to be and what we think he's going to be and realize what he is. When he came into the league, he was a defensive juggernaut. Had mad blocks in college for Kentucky. They ended up going and winning the title that year, the national championship. He was a defensive juggernaut, but he had all these skills. It showed that he could be a really good offensive player, and he has been in his career, especially for the Pelicans, and then his first season with the Lakers, he was brilliant. But since then, it's been a little rocky, up and down. Stephen A. Smith calls it a roller coaster, because he's going to have nights where he's really, really good, like 30, 15 rebounds, 4 blocks, dominant. And then he's going to have nights like this where he ends with 17 points. He shot 6 of 17 from the field, only had 1 rebound in the first half, 0 points in the second half. This just can't happen. LeBron so desperately wants to give away the torch, give it to Anthony Davis. He's been trying to do it since they traded for him. But it just seems like Anthony Davis either doesn't want it or he just doesn't have the motor or mentality to do it. Because the Lakers are not going to be able to be successful if they're still this reliant on LeBron James. He's going to be 39 in December. Anthony Davis needs to be the guy. And to be the guy for this team, a team that wants to win a title, he has to be consistent. Now, if he can't be, then that's an even larger issue the Lakers are going to have to address, because they just gave him a 3-year extension. If this is your guy, and this is who you expect to carry your franchise even post-LeBron, we're still not really sure how many more years LeBron will play. I was thinking maybe like another 2 years, but then in a commercial, his wife is talking about that he should be playing with Bryce, and Bryce is still in high school. So who knows how much longer LeBron will play. But with this strategy we're seeing this season, with the way the Lakers, I think, tooled their roster and trying to build around this duo, they're trying to take more and more responsibility off of LeBron, to the point where LeBron is playing more like a traditional small forward, where he's just in the corner, maybe for a catch and shoot three, or he's just working off the post as a post playmaker. If you're going to do that, you're going to need other players that can carry the load. Now, D'Lo and Austin, I think they're going to play better than they did last night. It's just game one. They just didn't play well. But Anthony Davis is going to have to be better than this. He's going to have to be consistent. Or else the Lakers, man, they're going to have to do something. And I saw Nick Wright said something crazy today. You know, it's an overreaction. I think he meant it more so as a joke. But you could swap Anthony Davis for Joel Embiid. I don't know if I'd ever even entertain that, just because I don't see why the Sixers would want that. If we're all clearly seeing what Anthony Davis is, that he's a clear tier below, which I think we knew this already, but it was really on display last night for everyone to see why Anthony Davis is a tier below the Embiid, Giannis, and Jokic tier of NBA superstars, is because he just doesn't bring it every night. And it's going to be, unfortunately, it's the thing like we remember right now for Anthony Davis. We're going to remember him as a really good defensive player who somehow never won a Defensive Player of the Year award. I think he can win it this season. I'm not, closing the book on the Lakers, of course. I picked them to win the title. I think they're going to figure this out, and I doubt the minutes restriction thing for the Lakers continues. I give it a month, honestly. I give it a month because it just doesn't make sense. I understand you want to shield LeBron from injury, but we've already seen that shielding someone from injury doesn't even guarantee you're going to avoid injury. He can get injured in the 28 minutes he plays, just playing him less. I understand from a mileage issue, the amount of minutes that he's played, but I think you can do that in back-to-backs if you have 3 games in 4 nights, on road trips. I think there's a way to do this that doesn't just strictly limit him to playing 30 minutes a night. Last night, I think he should have played more. He was in the game in the fourth quarter. The Lakers were able to cut it, I think, to 3 or 4 points. I think it was 94-90 or something like that. When they took him out and they brought AD back in, Jokic came back in, and then within minutes, it was a 12-point game. And the game was over. The Nuggets just coasted. They were getting every shot they wanted. They're just such a well-fined offense. They know exactly what they're doing out there. They're running with Jokic. They were able to get whatever shot they wanted, and it just kind of avalanched from there. And before you knew it, it was over. The Lakers are going to have to fix this. They got to figure this out. Anthony Davis is going to have to get, his stuff together, because he can't be the best player on this team, be someone that the Lakers rely on, and play this way. Adam Silver on Wednesday announced that the All-Star Game will be returning to its traditional style, which is East versus West. No more captains, no more draft, no more target score in the fourth, none of that. I have to say, I'm a little 50-50 on this. I liked, the new style. I liked them having a captain, picking a team. Last season they did it literally the night of the All-Star Game, like right before it, they picked their teams. I found that to be fun, like what you do at the park when you're playing with your boys. But they're obviously going away from it. It was kind of a gimmick, and they see that it's not really improving the quality of the All-Star Game, which is always like a talking point for some reason, as if the All-Star Game in the grand scheme of things matters that much. It's always going to be difficult to get players to play their hardest in the All-Star Game. I mean, the Pro Bowl is a joke. The MLB All-Star Game, I think, is pretty good, but it's hard to play baseball at like a 50% level, unless you're just not trying. So that's what they're trying to do. They're going back to the East versus West, which I think will be interesting, because now it kind of shifts, who can make the All-Star Game. Because the last couple seasons, even though they were voting for the East and West anyway, so I guess it doesn't change it that much, but you didn't know what the teams were. Now you look at, the better conference is going to always end up having the better team, and that was kind of the case for a long time. The West constantly won. The West would blow out the Eastern Conference, because for the past, I would say maybe 15 years, the Eastern, probably farther than that, a little bit more, the Western Conference has always been the better conference. This season, the Western Conference is the more competitive conference. I'm not sure if it's the better one. The East doesn't have as many great teams as the West does. they have the best teams maybe in Milwaukee and Boston, but they don't have a lot of teams past maybe the 5th or 6th seed that are like beaming with talent. They have a lot of young teams at the bottom, like the Hornets, the Hawks, the Magic, the Pacers, the Pistons. A lot of young teams, a lot of young stars. Whereas the West has a lot of the aging veterans like Curry, LeBron, Kawhi, Paul George, Kevin Durant. They're all on the West. And those are guys that are always going to be perennial all-stars if they're healthy. In the Eastern Conference, you're going to have some guys that have never made an all-star game before probably make it this season. You're going to have maybe some young guys make it. Maybe Apollo Banchero makes it this season, depending on how it goes for the season. If he's really good, the Magic, they start their season on Thursday. I'm sorry, they started on Wednesday. But I'm gonna miss the old style. The target score thing was cool, paying homage to Kobe Bryant and his late daughter Gigi. I think I liked that aspect of it, and it did make the fourth quarter a little more. It kind of forced them to be competitive, and then you put the charity money for the winners of each quarter. I kind of like that. But I think going back to the East versus West, people were calling for it because, people just get tired of stuff and they want new things constantly. They wanted people to go back to the East versus West, but we'll see how long that lasts when the West is blowing out the East every year like it used to be. Like, I remember as a kid always watching like Kobe in the Western Conference, Kevin Durant, Russell Westbrook, all those guys used to be on the Western Conference. Chris Paul for a long time. The teams were always better, and then the East had LeBron and Wade, and then like Carmelo, and then some other, amalgamation of players would always make it, and the West would always win. So we'll see how it goes this season. I mean, I don't know if they're not going to do the captain things anymore. It's just going to be the top 12 or 13 players from each conference. But we'll see how it goes. I like this decision from Adam Silver. He's always been one to not stick to anything. He gets flack for obviously a lot of other stuff, but he going back to the East versus West. He alluded to it last week, but finally getting that announcement, the All-Star game is always a fun time. I always love the All-Star game. The dunk contest, now that's something that needs fixing. That's the next thing we have to fix, because we can't let the dunk contest die out. We can't. It's dying right now, and it's possible that just some years are just going to be better than others. It's hard to entice guys to participate in this thing. There's not a lot of style dunkers that are superstars. We're always like, oh, why don't the superstars do it? Because the superstars aren't like those type of dunkers. Like Anthony Edwards says, he's an in-game dunker. He doesn't do a lot of different dunks. Same thing with LeBron. LeBron has always had like 3 or 4 different dunks that he does. What is he going to do in an All-Star game? And then when you look at the standards that we have now for the All-Star game, the dunk contest, we've seen everything been done to this point. I mean, Zach LaVine and Aaron Gordon, they definitely pushed the envelope. We saw some stuff that we don't usually see. And even then, Aaron Gordon was clearly better, but he lost both times that he did it. So I don't think it's so enticing. I don't know what you can do. If you go back over the summer, they usually give a lot of the dunk contests. They'll give them all in a row. They'll start with like obviously the Jordan and then Dominique ones. They'll show maybe Dr. J's at some point, all the way down to like Kobe when he won in the late 90s, and then through the 2000s. You see a lot of different things that they tried to get people more interested. But it's always going to come down to who does it. It doesn't guarantee that it's going to be great. I'm not sure Zion would be great in a dunk contest just because, well, one, he's heavy, and I'm not sure if the vertical is the same as it used to be. But it has to do with creativity and more so than jumping ability, because there's been guys, all the guys that do it can jump. But like Jericho Sims probably has one of the best, like highest verticals in the league. The dude can jump out the gym and he's like almost 7 feet tall, but he had no creativity. So his dunk sucked. And it was almost cringy, that one dunk that, he pulled out the piece of paper that said 50. It was a bad dunk. You got to really come up with stuff. And I think that's really the problem. It's not, who does it necessarily. Mac McClung was great. And he's a G leaguer. He was great because he was not only he could jump, but he was also creative. And obviously he has the online fame that he had. Everyone knew his dunks when he was in high school. He was wilding. So that's probably something next they got to try and fix. All-Star game, I don't know how much you can really fix it. East and West is going to be different. Obviously, people will like it. And it takes us back to maybe more uh, creative jerseys, better jerseys. I really liked, other people have said it, but I agree. I really liked, I think it was like in the late 90s or like early 2000s. It was maybe the early 2000s, that every All-Star wore their own jersey. Like, yeah, they would pick one conference would be the away team. They'd all wear their away jerseys. And then the other team, that was the home team, they'd all wear their home jersey. So everyone would be repping their own jersey. And I think that was kind of cool, show off, you're representing your team more so than just yourself at the All-Star game. And I think that was cool. That's an idea I think Adam Silver should consider. Instead of letting Nike continue to ruin these jerseys. I mean, have you seen some of these City Connect jerseys? They're horrible. And the fact that they change every season, not a good idea, because Kyle Kuzma, I saw tweeted it, you're ruining like the branding of these teams. Like, think about all the iconic jerseys we think about. The Toronto Raptors jersey with the dinosaur on it, or like those old Pistons jerseys, the old Magic jerseys with the pinstripes and stuff like that. Like, those are jerseys we remember, and like it used to be cool to wear retro jerseys. There's no more, you're not gonna have, the future ain't gonna have no retro jerseys, because the team Nike, they're changing the City Connect jerseys every year. And then, there's the regular jerseys, I guess, for teams. A lot of them are pretty basic. They just have, they're white with the colors and some sort of pattern, and then just the team name across the chest. I don't know if they need to go back with Adidas, or just, someone different at Nike got to start designing jerseys. They should probably like go look on Twitter, go look on Reddit. Some people are pretty talented, and they designed some nice jerseys, taking like old ideas from jerseys and kind of remixing them. I think that'd be cool. I did mention the Phoenix and Golden State game. Honestly, I didn't feel like I could get much from it. One, the Suns are playing without Bradley Beal, and two, Golden State just played so bad in terms of just how well they shot, that one, I think they're going to have to figure out how they're going to have all these moving pieces working. They're also playing without Draymond Green, so I think that's notable. Chris Paul, though he didn't shoot well, hit a few threes. He had a bunch of assists, so I think that's going to work out. They just didn't have a good shooting night against a team that we're looking at defensively in Phoenix. Are they going to be able to keep up with the rest of the league in terms of scoring? Well, they did well against a team that we expect to be pretty good in the Warriors. Playing without Bradley Beal, I knew Devin Booker was going to be that guy. Kevin Durant didn't have a good shooting night as well. But Devin Booker, man, he's showing that should be considered a top 10 player in the league, maybe even an MVP candidate this season. So that's going for them. They're going to be playing the Lakers later on tonight being Thursday when this is being recorded. It's going to be interesting to see if Beal plays that game. He's out with an injury. If he doesn't, how Phoenix is going to keep up defensively with the Lakers. The Lakers had not a great showing against Denver, obviously. We'll see if they bounce back in this game, how they try to incorporate Anthony Davis more to get him more shots, to make sure that he is fully engaged in the game, and see, just more of that core for the Lakers start to mesh together. Now, a lot of teams got their start in on Wednesday night. We saw Zion, we saw Wemby. Shai had 30 in a blowout against the Bulls. The Pacers blew out the Wizards, put up like 146 points on them, and much more. But I really want to talk about the Celtics and MSG. They're winning Madison Square Garden against the Knicks, and the thriller we saw in San Antonio. Celtics beat the Knicks 108-104, led by Tatum and Kristaps, dropping 34 and 30 respectively. You expect it from Tatum. He's one of the best players in the league. Is going to be an MVP candidate as well. But it was Porzingis' 30 that really killed the Knicks. Not only, of course, is he a former Knick, and he left here with not so great things to say about the Knicks organization. Obviously, at that time, the Knicks were not in a great place. Phil Jackson is the president, not a bad stuff going on. But they just had no answer for him. And, of course, it helps when you shoot 5 of 9 from behind the arc. One of those being the dagger late in the fourth that kind of put the game away. The Knicks fought, though. They didn't get great games from their two all-star caliber players in Jalen Brunson and Julius Randle, but RJ Barrett and Emmanuel Quickley off the bench, both Emmanuel Quickley come off the bench. They both had 24. I wrote an article for Fansided recently, actually, about how the Knicks didn't extend Quickley and how I thought it was a mistake. They're setting themselves up for failure. If he has a great season, Quickley I'm talking about, if he has a great season this year, there are going to be teams out there that are going to want to sign him. He's going to be a restricted free agent at the end of this season. The price is going to go up. The Knicks couldn't get him at the price that they wanted. Quickley obviously couldn't get the contract at the price that he wanted. So they, are apart on that issue. But he had 24 last night. At times was our best player. Shot 7-11 from the field and was 5 of 7 from 3. The guy's just too valuable on both sides of the floor. Some people say he should even start. I happen to like Quentin Grimes, and I think he has a lot of potential. I'm not sure Tibbs is the one to unlock it for Grimes, but he hit 3 threes, including a 4-point play that pushed the Knicks lead to 6 halfway through the fourth. He's also great defensively as well, helped keep Jaylen Brown at bay. Of course, Jaylen Brown was 4 of 11. He also was in foul trouble, so that contributed to it as well. Ultimately, though, Celtics pulled out a win. One thing to note, though, they only got 12 points from off their bench, and 8 came from Al Horford alone. So Sam Hauser, Peyton Pritchard, whoever else, O'Shea Brissett they have on their bench, he didn't play in this game, but whoever they use off that bench, it's going to be imperative that Joe Mazzulla figures out lineups to try and help them score, because they struggled last night whenever they were on the floor by themselves. They always needed a Drew Holiday in there or a Tatum or a Brown at the same time. And they still, it ended up, most of the scoring was done by the starters. But sure, you have Tatum, Brown, and Porzingis. But in a game where Jalen Brunson and Julius Randle did not play well, if they play well, this game likely goes in the Knicks' favor. That's something that you're going to have to keep an eye on as the season goes on. Obviously, just game number 1. I know a lot of crazy things are being said, post these games. I heard some crazy things this morning, that the Kings are the biggest threat to the Denver Nuggets after, losing in the first round last season. They're now the biggest threats. The Pelicans can make the finals if Zion plays. I know they had a good game against Ja Morant-less Grizzlies. And Zion looked very good, and so did Ingram and CJ McCollum. But, we have to temper, our predictions, the opinions that we have today, this week after, this slate of games, is going to be different next week when we see them play somebody else, or in a month, or in 2 months from now, depending on what happens. Still 2 teams we've yet to see, the 76ers and the Bucks. They will play on Thursday night. Sixers will be without Harden. He has since rejoined the team, since he took a break, I guess, or just was away from the team, dealing with his trade request and the issues he has with the team. He's back with the team, and they expect him to be back playing within the next week or so. But they'll be going against the new look Bucks on Thursday night without him, against Damian Lillard and Giannis Antetokounmpo. That's going to be a great game as well. And I mentioned the Lakers will be playing the Suns in the second game of that doubleheader. The other nationally televised game, though, on Wednesday night was the NBA debut of Victor Wembanyama against Luka and the Dallas Mavericks. Luka was ridiculous in this game. 33-point triple-double. Kyrie didn't shoot great, but was key down the stretch, hit timely buckets. And the rookie Derek Lively wasn't only the rookie. Wasn't just Victor Wembanyama in that game making his debut, but Derek Lively as well, the second 12th overall pick in this past summer's draft. He was an impressive debut. I believe he had 16 points. But of course, all eyes were on Wemby. He was in foul trouble all night, so he played in like spurts. Wasn't really. I don't think he was really able to get into a rhythm, which is why for the longest he hadn't taken a lot of shots. But he ultimately shot 6 of 9 from the field for 15 points. He also had 5 rebounds, 2 assists. He hit 3 threes, which was a big question mark, I think, for a lot of people coming into his career. Didn't shoot well from 3 last year in the French league that he played in. The question was going to be, coming in, can he shoot that NBA 3? Can he be a reliable shooter from downtown, especially because he's going to be tasked with spacing the floor. They're not going to run a lot of post-ups for him, and I heard the broadcast talk about it during the game, that despite his size, he doesn't have quite the physical attributes to be a dominant post player, at least not yet. So it's going to be a rare thing we see from him posting up, and if he does, it's going to be a post playmaker. We saw him, I forgot who it was, he hit on a backdoor cut with a bounce pass. They ended up losing the ball out of bounds, but something like that, that's probably how they're going to use him, because he has all these skills and they want to put him to use. But if he's playing that 4 along with Zach Collins, we're going to see him out on the perimeter. We're going to see him shoot jumpers, and I think that's what we saw mostly last night. He's going to be a rim runner. He's going to pop out for threes and pop out for mid-range jumpers. So the fact that he hit 3 threes and was shooting it confidently, I think that's a great sign, of course, just in his first NBA game. But I don't know. Are the Spurs good? Can we talk about this? Are the Spurs good? Because I didn't expect the Spurs to be great this season. I don't think anyone does. But it seems like they will be actually trying to win, because last night, man, San Antonio was rocking. I haven't seen San Antonio like that in some time. Of course, no one's been watching Spurs games for the past couple seasons, but they have a lot of young talent. Keldon Johnson, Devin Vassell. Let's talk about this kid. I mean, he got that contract extension several days ago, almost a week or two ago, and dudes were like, "Who is this guy? You know, where's all this money coming from?" And you know what? It's warranted. They knew what they had. We didn't, because we don't watch the Spurs. Even this year, they don't have an abundance of national televised games, and they have Victor Wembanyama on the roster. Wemby had 9 points in the fourth. Looked like the Spurs were gonna pull one out, but they never went back to him. And I think it was like the last 2 or so minutes that he didn't touch the ball really again. He never took another shot. And of course, Luka and Kyrie being the players that they are, they take over and the Mavericks end up winning the game. I thought Wemby was actually really good last night. I know the numbers don't jump off the page, but given the fact that he was in foul trouble and he has these immense expectations on him, I think it was a pretty decent game. He was a deterrent at the rim. He didn't rebound a bunch. I know some of my betting friends out there, not happy about that. Him being, the height that he is, didn't get a lot of rebounds. He was playing in spurts, obviously, but he didn't force anything. Looked a little tentative, but that's, normal for a 19-year-old in his first game. But I think we're going to continue to see the more games that he plays, the more comfortable he gets. His teammates missed him a lot of times on rim runs. They missed him down low where he has clearly a smaller defender on him. I think as this team continues to play together and they continue to learn Victor Wembanyama's tendencies and what he likes, I think they will learn to play together. They do have a lot of young guys that are all trying to prove themselves and all trying to play really well. But once they collectively come together, I think, and under Greg Popovich, start to maximize Victor Wembanyama even right now at just 19 years old, I think this Spurs team could be actually really good. This season, I'm not sure, just because how difficult the West is going to be. I mean, the West has legitimately 11 playoff teams. 11 teams that you think can get into the playoffs and be, a threat, I guess, to those top teams in the Western Conference. And then you got, the group at the bottom like Houston, Portland, Utah, and the Spurs. Those are the 4 teams that are kind of at the bottom. And then you have, the Pelicans, OKC, the Wolves, teams that can be good, but we're not really sure yet. Of course, Stephen A. Smith thinks the Pelicans can make the finals. I like Zion too, but I understand they were really good at the beginning of last season before Zion got hurt. But let's cool it down. That is all we have on this episode of Trueish Hoops. I'd like to thank you for listening, tuning into the show. If you haven't already, like, subscribe, follow the show. You could also follow Trueish Hoops on TikTok for more sports content and snippets of the show. You can also follow me personally at OZPDan on Instagram and X. You can also email the podcast at trueishhoopspodcast@gmail.com for any questions you want me to talk about on the show, overarching questions, or maybe questions about your favorite team. I'll be looking at that and, of course, allow you to be a part of the show. Thanks for listening. See you guys next week.